The village of Mwanza. Mwanza was a village nestled in the cradle of the savannah, a place where the earth met the sky in a constant horizon. The village thrived on its traditions, early morning farming, songs of harvest, and evenings spent by the fires under the watchful gaze of the moon. People were kind, but poverty lived among them like an uninvited guest lingering in cracked walls and empty cooking pots. Among the villagers, no one stood out more than Juma, the son of a respected farmer. Tall and lean with curious eyes, he often asked questions where others stayed silent. Life in Mwanza was predictable until she arrived. The arrival of Mwanza. One afternoon, as the sun hung heavy in the sky, a stranger entered Mwanza. She came pulling a wooden cart, its wheels groaning under the weight of shiny new buckets, basins, ladles, and colorful beads. She wore a faded brown wrapper, her head covered by a cloth, and her face was weathered but her smile disarming. "Greetings, my friends," she called out to the villagers who stared. "I bring you gifts for trade. Bring me what you no longer need, and I will give you something that shines." At first people laughed. What good could come from trading worn-out clothes for a bucket or basin? But Mwanza was persistent. She approached Nuru, an elderly woman with a cracked basin, offering her a new one in exchange for old rags. Nuru, hesitant but intrigued, handed over torn wrappers and an old pair of sandals. The next day, Mwanza returned. Word spread, and curiosity grew. The villagers soon fell under Mwanza's spell. Every week, her cart arrived overflowing with gifts too bright to resist. The mothers gave old baby clothes, the men parted with worn trousers, and, oddly enough, Mwanza always insisted on undergarments. "The city traders want them," Mwanza explained with a smile. "Do not ask me why, what matters is that I give you things you need." The villagers shrugged, grateful for the shiny buckets and ladles they could show off during market days. Juma's unease. Juma watched Mwanza with suspicion. Something about her smile was too quick, her explanations too smooth. "Why does she want underpants?" he asked his friend Baraka. Baraka laughed. "Juma, does it matter? My mother traded old clothes and got 3 new bowls." But unease gnawed at Juma's mind. The village, once carefree, began to change. The signs. Crops fell, farmers reported wilted plants despite healthy rains. Sickness spreads, goats and chickens fell ill with no explanation. Dreamless nights, people whispered of waking up feeling drained, as if something had been stolen from them in their sleep. Juma's own household suffered. His mother grew weak, complaining of heaviness in her chest. "It's bad luck," the elders said. "These things happen." But Juma wasn't satisfied. He began watching Mwanza. One night, Juma woke to the sound of creaking wheels. Silently, he slipped out of bed and followed Mwanza, who was dragging sacks into the dark forest. His heart pounded as he trailed her by the moonlight. Deeper into the forest, Mwanza stopped at a clearing. Juma hid behind a tree and watched. A group of shadowy figures emerged, cloaked in dark robes. Mwanza opened her sacks, pulling out undergarments and torn clothes, which she placed into a cycle mat on the ground with ash. A low chanting began, voices rising and falling in an airy rhythm. Mwanza held up a pair of underpants and muttered words Juma couldn't understand. Flames erupted from a small fire at the center of the cycle. The clothes were thrown into it. The fire roared higher, and Juma felt an unnatural chill. "The power of their essence is ours to claim," Mwanza intoned. "For riches, for strength, for power." Juma's eyes widened. "She's draining their life." Horrified, Juma turned and ran back to the village, his feet barely touching the ground. He burst into Baraka's home. "I saw it. Mwanza, she's using the clothes for dark rituals." Juma panted, recounting the scene. Baraka stared at him. "Are you sure?" "Yes. She's draining our energy through the undergarments. The next morning, Juma gathered a few friends and told the elders what he had seen. Do you hear yourself? One elder scoffed. Mwanza brings US gifts. You bring US fear. But the sickness, the dying crops, it's her doing. Juma argued. Many villagers refused to believe him. Mwanza, meanwhile, denied the accusations with feigned innocence. These boys are spreading lies because they are jealous of my gifts, she said sweetly. Why would I harm the people who welcome me? Some villagers murmured agreements. Mwanza continued shredding, but the suspicion in Kumbwada began to simmer. Determined to expose Mwanza, Juma and Baraka decided to return to the forest to gather evidence. That night they crept into the clearing. The ashes of clothes littered the ground, and faint symbols were etched into the earth. Juma pocketed a piece of burnt fabric. We'll show this to the elders, Baraka said. The next morning, Juma stood before the village holding the burnt fabric. This is what she does in the forest. She burns our clothes to steal our strength. The crowd murmured, uneasy. Mwanza stepped forward, her face darkening. Enough of these lies, she hissed. I give you gifts and this is how you repay me. But the crowd hesitated. The truth hung in the air. That evening, Juma and Baraka, joined by others, followed Mwanza one last time. The cut her mid-ritual, chanting as flames engulfed a new pile of undergarments. Mwanza, Juma shouted, stepping into the clearing. The chanting stopped. Mwanza's face twisted into a snarl, her voice turning harsh and guttural. You fools! You dare challenge me! As the villagers watched, Mwanza raised her hands, calling on dark forces. The fire roared, and the ground shook. But suddenly, the flames turned on her, as if rejecting her plea. Mwanza screamed as her body was consumed by the fire. When the flames died, nothing remained but ashes and scraps of clothes. The villagers returned to Kumbwada in silence, humbled and shaking. Crops began to grow again, and the sickness disappeared. The elders gathered the village to speak. This is what happens when greed overcomes the soul, they said. Beware of those who offer gifts that shine too brightly. Evil often hides behind smiles. Juma became a respected voice in the village, remembered for his courage. The story of Mwanza became a cautionary tale, passed down to children as a reminder to trust their instincts and protect their spirits. And so, in Kumbwada, peace returned, but they never forgot Mwanza, the woman who traded in shadows. Thanks for tuning in, and please don't forget to like, share and subscribe to our channel for other stories.